Good afternoon and welcome back as we jump into another edition of Let's Talk, Kentucky counties named for Revolutionary War patriots as we celebrate America's 250th birthday. So today we are talking about Madison County, Kentucky. Let's jump in and learn who that county was named for. So as we have discussed in our previous videos, we have already talked about our 1785 and 1786 counties of Nelson and Mercer and briefly discussed Bourbon County, if you remember, that county was named for the family of Bourbon, the French family. And today we are delving into Madison County. And Madison County, there we go. There's my map. So I wanted to show you that map briefly in case this is the first time you have watched any of my videos, so you can see what the 1786 map of Kentucky, the District of Kentucky, looked like. Because again, in 1786, we were still under Virginia as a state. So we were not yet the state of Kentucky. And so in 1786, we added Madison County along with the other counties that I just mentioned. And so Madison County was named for James Madison. Now, I will tell you that I knew he was the fourth president of the United States, and probably beyond that, I knew very little. And I will tell you that I think he's pretty phenomenal. So I learned a lot about him, and I think maybe most of you will too. Unless you just happen to be really knowledgeable on James Madison. And kudos to you if you are. So, James Madison, father of the Constitution, fourth president of the United States. Here we go. He was born March 16th of 1751 in Port Conway, Virginia, and this is actually a current day map of Port Conway. He was born to James and Nellie Conway Madison Sr., so he was named for his father. Again, he was born on March 16th, 1751 in Virginia. So if you have not seen a post that I recently made on Facebook, Virginia was established by the English in 1607. So in 1751, the English had already been on the continent and in Virginia for over 100 years. So one of my previous posts, I talked about a Revolutionary War patriot who had been born in Scotland, because a lot of our Revolutionary War patriots had actually been born in what would become America, but at that time, of course, were the British colonies. Now, James Madison Jr. received his early education from his mother, who taught him reading and writing. He was sent to boarding school at the age of 10, where he learned 6 languages. He then studied under a Scottish Enlightenment thinker named Thomas Martin. Don't really know anything about him. Now, he did go on to enroll in the College of New Jersey, which today we know as Princeton University. He received his bachelor's in arts. I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't walk away as a lawyer, as many of our early men did. I think he really didn't quite know what he wanted to do. You'll hear that here in just a second. Upon graduation, he returned to Montpelier, which was his father's plantation there in Virginia. He returned there at the age of 21. He explored law, he explored farming, he explored politics. He attended government meetings with his father, who was in politics. And once he did that, he did find his love of public service and politics. And I will say that once you hear all the grand things that he did, you might be very thankful that he did find his love of public service. Now, in 1775, that's when the Revolutionary War begins. And, here's the picture of Montpellier that he ended up living at for a short period. In 1775, the Revolutionary War begins at the Battle of Lexington and Concord. And at that time, the Virginia colony calls up for the men to arm themselves. So James Madison obviously comes to aid, and he is given the title of colonel because of his schooling and because of his background with his father already in government. So he's granted the title of colonel in the Orange County Militia there in Virginia. Now, in 1776, due to some medical issues, James Madison left the militia to serve in the 5th Virginia Convention, which created Virginia's first constitution. And then also, Madison added to Virginia's Declaration of Rights. And here is a picture of the Capitol building in Williamsburg, where the 5th Virginia Convention actually took place. And this is in Williamsburg. And this is actually a photo of that building, and we have actually been there. So this was before my blog ever started. So it's pretty awesome that I just happened to have been there and actually have taken this picture and now realize all the things that took place in that building. So that's very cool. So this is that building where Virginia's 5th convention took place. Now, with the ratification of Virginia's Declaration of Rights, that actually led to James Madison's election to the Virginia House of Delegates. And it is actually there that he met Thomas Jefferson, who became his longtime friend and ally. Later, he then worked on the Articles of Confederation, which actually was ratified in 1781. The article was the first official form of government for the United States, which was pretty cool. So again, we're building up to becoming independent in this time period, and James Madison is playing a significant role. So the Articles of Confederation were ratified in 1781, and it was the first official form of government for the United States after declaring independence. Now, he served in the Second Continental Congress, where he then met Alexander Hamilton. He then later convinced George Washington that new government was needed in order for the United States to survive. So in 1787, we held the Constitutional Convention. James Madison introduced the Virginia Plan, which introduced a strong central government with 3 branches that included checks and balances. So if you think about that, the Virginia Plan is very similar to what we have today, and James Madison is responsible for that. Now, between 1787 and 1788, the Federalist Papers come into play, and James Madison was one of the 3 writers of those essays. So the Federalist Papers were actually 85 essays that were written arguing for the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. Madison wrote 29 of those 85. John Jay and Alexander Hamilton wrote the rest. They did write them under a pseudonym, And those Federalist Papers aided in the ratification of the Constitution. So again, he played a significant role in the federal the Constitution, how the government would be laid out, and getting that Constitution ratified. He aided in adding religious freedom to the First Amendment, and then he also worked on editing the first 9 amendments that would later become the Bill of Rights in 1791. So he's in on the Constitution, he's in on the Bill of Rights, and adding religious freedom to that. It is because of all of that work that he receives the nicknames of Father of the Constitution and the Architect of the Bill of Rights. Now, after all of that, add this to his list of major accomplishments. He wrote George Washington's inaugural address. He became a member of the House of Representatives. He developed the Democratic Republican Party with Thomas Jefferson. And then we'll get to a little bit of his personal. In 1794, he met widow Dolly Payne Todd in Philadelphia. He married her later that year in Virginia, and they came back to live at Montpelier again, the plantation there in Virginia. When his father passed away, he inherited the plantation, and they lived there. And he also, James Madison Jr., the 4th president of the United States, then raised Dolly's only surviving son from her first marriage, her son, John Payne Todd. He raised him there at the plantation. When Thomas Jefferson became, let me go back here for just a second. When Thomas Jefferson became 3rd president, Madison was appointed Secretary of State. He was influential to Thomas Jefferson's cabinet. He then ran for president in 1808. He was victorious against Charles Pinckney in 1808. He ran again in 1812 and was victorious against DeWitt Clinton. So he had 2 terms in office as president. And then on June 1st of 1812, Madison asked Congress to declare war on Britain, starting the War of 1812. The British, we know during that war, burned the White House. And it was during that time that Dolly Madison knew, I don't know that she knew about the raid, but she was just smart enough with her wits to know that this was, I guess, a possibility. So she saved wonderful artworks in the White House. And this wonderful painting by Gilbert Stuart was one of the paintings that she saved from being burned during the raid of the War of 1812. Now, on February 16th, 1815, the Treaty of Ghent was negotiated and signed. And actually, the war was established as being inconclusive, but we always want to consider it to be a victory. But it was inconclusive, and I didn't know that either. So that's kind of interesting to learn. In 1817, James Madison retired from the White House and returned to Montpelier, and he died on June 28th of 1836 at 85 years old. He was actually the last surviving founding father. He is buried in the family cemetery there at Montpelier. This is a photograph of his monument there. Dolly died in 1849 and is buried beside him. Now, not only do we have Madison County, Kentucky, that is named for Madison, but we also have Madisonville, Kentucky, that is named for Madison. And that city town was established in 1807. And my daughter and I actually visited that city this past summer. And this is actually a painting that they put on the side of one of their downtown buildings, which is a painting of Montpelier on the side of their building there in downtown in Madisonville. So that's pretty cool. And obviously, like I said, we visited there as well. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The next edition of Let's Talk, and how one of our counties got to be named Madison County, Kentucky, for the 4th president of the United States. So thank you so much for joining us again. We are celebrating America's 250th birthday, and we have so many more Revolutionary War patriots to talk about and so many more Kentucky counties. So please, please, please subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Facebook. I will be coming back with more Kentucky counties and the Revolutionary War patriots for which they are named. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.